affiliate marketing isn't like a major in college. It's not something you go to school to become an affiliate marketer. It's difficult. There's a lot that's behind it.
You're listening to the Affiliate Marketing Podcast brought to you by AffyverseMedia.com, the chapter and verse of everything you need to know about running a successful affiliate program for your business. Now, here's your award-winning affiliate and performance marketing host, an industry veteran, your affiliate marketing guide, and the founder of Affyverse, Leanne Johnstone.
The numbers are in from the PMA's latest brand survey, and they paint an unexpected picture of affiliate marketing in 2024. While some programs are thriving with hundreds of active partners, others are missing crucial opportunities by focusing on just a handful of publishers. Today, we're joined by Tricia Meyer, the Executive Director of the PMA, who's sharing data that challenges conventional affiliate wisdom, from programs running for many years to those that have launched in the last 3 to 4. The survey reveals fascinating patterns in how successful brands are allocating their budgets. The data shows that mature programs aren't just bigger, but they're fundamentally different in how they operate. We'll explore why agencies are managing almost 77% of the US affiliate programs surveyed, and what that means for brands who are looking to scale. Tricia breaks down exactly what separates high-performing programs from the rest, including their approach to sub-networks, content publishers, and emerging channels. If you're plotting your affiliate strategy for next year, you'll not want to miss this episode. Tricia's bringing the receipts with hard data that might just change your view on your 2025 strategy. Welcome to this week's Affiliate Marketing Podcast with me, your host, Leanne Johnstone. And today I'm really excited because I have Tricia Meyer, the Executive Director of the PMA.org in the US, on this podcast today to talk about a recent brand survey that was released, which had some really interesting information in, and I just couldn't wait to deep dive this with Tricia. So Tricia, thank you so much for being on the podcast with me this week. It is a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. I love nothing more than talking about PMAs.
All right. Well, today we're going to be talking about that US brand survey that was recently released, and I read it and there was just so many interesting insights in there. And I thought it would be good to get on a podcast with you and just talk about some of those stats, what they actually mean for our industry, and some of the insights that we can glean from them, which is just super useful information for any affiliate manager that's tuning into this podcast. So let's start off with why a brand survey, like why did the PMA pick that big task up? And what were the main goals of collating the survey for this industry?
Absolutely. So this ended up being a lot bigger than we thought it was going to be. We usually do a really big survey every 3 years that we do with the networks in conjunction with PwC. And that kind of takes the data from the networks, confidentially pulls it all together. We get the results from that. And that's where we get like our actual sizing of the industry and things like that. But that's a huge undertaking that's pretty expensive. So we decided that in this interim that we would try something a little bit smaller. And what we thought was going to be smaller ended up being quite large. This came out of the Measurements and Insights Council of the PMA. So it was just a group of them that got together, and we spent some time talking about what might be interesting, especially for affiliate managers, because agencies make up so much of the PMA. So we were talking about what are the types of things that would be interesting. So these were people that are kind of in the trenches, people that are managing programs, people that work for the networks that all got together and over the course of a couple of months, just hashed out like a lot of questions. And we were weighing how many questions can you ask and people will actually respond versus too many questions. So we came up with this middle ground of this survey where we asked, I think about like 12 or 14 questions, made about half of them optional. So our goal was to get at least 200 brand responses, and we ended up with over 300. What we initially thought was just going to be like a couple of charts ended up being a lot of data that we were able to slice and dice in different ways.
And that's what we're going to get into right now. So one of the standout insights for me was that 77% of the respondents were agencies managing affiliate programs for their clients. Why is this significant, and what does it suggest about the influence that agencies have in the US performance marketing market compared to here in Europe? It's quite interesting because the APMA also released an industry survey. And for me, looking at both sides of the pond, like the US market is huge and it has always grown at double-digit figures every year. But to see the amount of agencies that are actually responsible for managing that growth and impacting the strategies that go behind that growth was really like thrilling for me. So why do you think it's so significant, and why do you think agencies play such a big role?
I I think just to start with, from a sample size perspective, the PMA is made up of a lot of agencies. About a third of our members are agencies. You're talking hundreds of agencies in the US to start with. So the agencies are the ones here who are really active in organizations like this, who are really active in going to the conferences, sharing information, sharing data and things like that. So I think just from the sample size to begin with, we knew we were going to end up having a lot more agency responses. I think also affiliate marketing isn't like a major in college. It's not something you go to school to become an affiliate marketer. It's difficult. There's a lot that's behind it. And it's becoming more and more difficult every year just because there's more that goes into it. So I think at least here in the US, we're seeing that agencies are the ones who are the specialists in every little piece of affiliate marketing, the tracking, the recruitment, how it interplays with other marketing channels, sharing of the best practices. And because of that, I think a lot of brands are understanding that whether you hire somebody to launch the program for you initially and set it all up, or the person who's going to manage it long term, that the agencies are just the ones that are best equipped in most situations to do that.
And also it means that they're leveraging a lot of insight because agencies work across multiple clients. They get access to a lot more data. They understand what publishers are doing across multiple different verticals. And I think brands need to leverage that information if they really do want to scale in this channel, because you're right. Affiliate marketing is becoming more complex. Every year there's a new channel, a new place, a new trend, something that you need to be getting ahead of and incorporating into what we establish as traditional affiliate publishers. And we'll get onto some of the segmentation a bit later because that was also interesting. And I think agencies always used to be pushed to the side in the shroom room. But what we're seeing in America, which is a fast growing market, is that the agencies are actually leading the way in implementing what the best practices should be. So it's quite interesting to me how our two markets differ here in Europe and in the US. When it came to advertiser spending, what were some of the biggest trends that the survey revealed in terms of where brands are allocating their budgets in performance marketing? And I think this is where we can dig into the segmentation piece, because we do talk a lot about, are you segmenting your affiliate program properly? Are you bringing the right partners in at the right stages of the customer buyer funnel? And more often than not, and some of the other interesting stats that are in this survey, we're seeing that people aren't. We're seeing very small amounts of active affiliates, which is actually impacting the success models. You know, interestingly, I think it was 37% of respondents were running programs that launched recently only in 2020. So out of that 300, we had only 37% that had launched in the last 4 years. Do you think that's showing the rapid growth rate that the industry is reporting, both here and in the UK? Because obviously some of your brands that you surveyed, they work across market. They're not only in the US, right?
Right. I think those numbers that we saw, the fact that we had 16% that are 14 years or older. I mean, really think about that. 14 years of an affiliate program. That's a long time when you look at e-commerce in general. 16% on that end. And then we had 47% that were in that 5 to 13. So we have like almost the bulk that were in the middle, but 30 just in this last few years. It shows that we really are continuing to pick up a lot of retailers. And I think now in retrospect, it will be even more interesting to break that down further. Like how many do we have just launching in the last 12 months? So that's something that I would like to see when we do it next time, is to put in one more break there just so we could see how many really new programs we have. But I think it showed a nice range. It shows that we do have a lot of really mature programs in the US, but we also do have over a third that are relatively new programs.
And the other thing as well is what you need to take from that as an affiliate manager is that the competition is hotting up. If a third of all of those respondents only launched into the market in the last 3 years, what does the next 5 years look like for you? You might be a big program now, but there are competitors coming into the space and there's only a finite group of kind of like publishers at the moment at any given time that can promote your product. So I think it's going to become more competitive. I think that the kind of use it or lose it motto is going to apply, and affiliate managers need to start doubling down on building really proper relationships, getting really skillful with the data that they've got access to, and leveraging that data to spend their money wisely. And I know I sound like a stuck record because I pretty much say that on every podcast, but the numbers are actually detailing the story now too. And what I'd like to see is, if we can get back to that segmentation model, like what were some of the results that were released in the brand survey about where brands were spending their money, like what types of publishers they were spending with. So let's talk about that for a little bit, because the programs that have less than 50 affiliates that are active and driving the bulk of their revenue, that model is going to die out simply because the competition is hotting up. So what was some of the summaries that we had from like where people are spending their money in the performance channel?
So we weren't surprised to see cashback, coupon, loyalty sites to be the majority when put together, because in the previous surveys that we've done that we were looking at actual numbers, we saw that those were the highest. In this case, we asked the question a little bit differently so that we didn't have to ask for financial data from the respondents in hopes of getting more. So we asked what the category is that represents your highest spend or your highest revenue. And we still saw those come out on top. But what was interesting was that we did see these little pockets of other publisher types that individual retailers were saying were their top. So when you have a retailer that says comparison websites are our top spend, or technology publishers are our top spend, social influencer are our top spend, what you're seeing is that there are retailers that are figuring out that they can change their mix from the standard program, and they're seeing success in there. So it bodes well for this, as you were saying, that there's this kind of finite number of publishers right now. And each publisher only can give attention to so many retailers. You can only put up so many in posts. You can only write so many blog posts. There's a finite amount of traffic that you can send. And as if more and more retailers are coming in, that landscape, it is changing. And you would think it's a publisher's landscape when you look at it like that and say, we should kind of, I, as a publisher myself, we should have our pick of brands. But you still see people wanting to take the big brands, the ones that are a little bit easier to promote because they have brand recognition and things like that. So for the publisher side, you just have to understand there's a fit for all of us. It may not be the biggest brand name out there that's the best fit for your traffic or the type of work that you do, but there is a fit for you. And it's finding that fit. It's working with agencies who you can say, this is what I do. This is what my niche is. These are who my people are. You tell me what brands you have that you think we could make a good connection, and then working that relationship.
And focus in. The spray and pray tactic isn't going to work anymore because now the market has become more competitive. So really knuckle down and get to know who is your target publisher and start to build long-term sustainable relationships with those partners, rather than trying to go out and spin your wheels recruiting and hoping that that's going to build your brand awareness, because you might need to augment that with other traffic sources or types. And especially now with the different social media channels that you can level down and find content creators with, you really need to be doing your due diligence about where you're spending your money across social media channels, because you don't need to be everywhere, and you can double down on just one channel and then get really deep into the types of content creators that you're leveraging through that channel, as long as you know that your customer is there. You're going to need to start looking at data segments. You're going to need to start looking at what TikTok and Meta and Instagram and all of these channels are publishing in terms of their data, their customer information, which they don't do very often, but also asking your own audience, where do you hang out online? And using that simple survey question to actually figure out what publishers you need to be augmenting into your program. How does all of this impact pricing models and the competitive landscape for publishers right now? So you said it's a publisher's market, right? It's a buyer's market, because finite amount of traffic, only so many brands that a publisher can really leverage and work with. Do you think prices are going to be increasing? Regardless, we're in an economic kind of stump where supply and demand is changing based on economic factors. But do you think that affiliates are driving prices up because there is competition? Or do you think that brands are just leveling off and working with certain partners that they know can work?
I think it's a mix, because one of the things that we saw was that the retailers had higher spend on content, but lower revenue with content. So you have to balance that. So you probably are going to be paying more for the content because there are fewer content publishers. There tend to be more niche. You have all these changes with Google, these algorithm changes, AI-generated results that are impacting these publishers. It is going to cost more because you're at that beginning of the journey kind of thing with those publishers. So you may be paying more and seeing less money coming out of that immediately. But you have to have that nice mix of that's your long term there, that you start with those, you have those content sites and they're building this content that's about you and for you. And you hope that they're doing the long tail work so that over time, you're continuing to make money off of those placements. Then you have those shorter term placements, getting onto the coupon sites, the loyalty cashback sites, those things where you might be able to pay a little bit less percentage wise and get the faster traffic. I think a good affiliate manager is figuring out that balance and where the value is. And a lot of data comes into play with that. What's the ROI? Are these new customers or are these returning customers and things like that? Those kinds of things, you have to have that data to really be able to make that mix work for you.
I feel like after reading the brand survey, because I did read it in to just get a sense of what's happening over there, I feel like next year is going to be, and maybe I'm looking at my crystal ball for future trends, but I feel like next year is going to be a year where we double down on profit. It's not going to be a year where we are seeking new growth. So I think with the advancement of the state of analytics, the aggregation tools that are out there, AI that's able to read into the data a little bit quicker and give us those insights, I feel like experienced affiliate managers are going to be chasing profit and conversion rather than looking at net new. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think because we have so much more data, the agencies in particular are figuring out how to leverage that data for their brands. So they're looking at it and they're saying, whether you call it the funnel or the customer journey or whatever you're calling it, you're taking that data and you're crunching it and you're saying, okay, here are the different places, here are the profitability of different parts of the journey and the different types of publishers that are involved in that. And so we are going to continue to see more publisher models coming in as well, I think. And so it's just going to be more different data points, because the reality is most customers are being touched by different types of publishers along the way. They're seeing something on social media, they're searching and reading a blog post, then they're getting some kind of coupon, they're coming to your site, but then you're using a retargeting technology affiliate of some kind that's sending out an email or a push notification to them to try to get them to come back into their cart. So they are being touched by all these different things. And who knows in the next year what other types of things we're going to be slotting in there as well.
Some of the research that I'm reading, they say that there's anything between 6 to 22 touch points before a customer is actually purchasing and buying something. Doesn't matter what industry, that's like an average. But if you think about it, if you're not being seen at a third of those touch points, your competitor is. So segmentation, I think, is going to become a really juicy word that we're all going to talk about next year. Whereas I feel like this year was all about incrementality and attribution. And incrementality is phenomenal for the affiliate channel when you're lucky enough to be able to actually measure that from click to sale. But I think it's less important, and I might be sticking my neck out there, I think it's less important than brand awareness, because we now know that brand awareness and brand recognition ultimately impacts user sales, like users converting to your brand. So why are we not leveraging more publishers in the performance model to push brand awareness top of funnel when the client is doing the 6 to 22 touch point search journey to find the product that they want?
I think that's why we did see a lot of these brands that are fine with paying out, having a higher spend on content than revenue on content, because they do understand that. They understand that a lot of this content that's being consumed, that particular affiliate is not going to end up getting credited for that. And that, I think, it's a difficult part of our industry that everyone keeps talking about. How do we solve for this? How do we fix this? How do we actually say that this exposure was worth the money that we put toward it if we're not measuring it? I think that's where a lot of these tech companies are coming in and saying, oh, but we can measure it. We're going to keep track of all these different touch points for you. And not necessarily about the incrementality, but as you said, it's the exposure, and it's figuring out that there are a lot of different affiliates that come into play for this one sale.
Totally agree. So let's talk about program maturity as well, because the data suggested that mature programs tend to have more active affiliates. Now, that kind of makes sense, because the longer you've been in business, the more relationships you're going to make. But what does this tell us about the life cycle of affiliate programs, and how can newer affiliate programs accelerate their growth to reach similar levels?
So it was interesting. It wasn't something that we initially intended to measure, but as the measurements council, as we were going through the data, it came through me because it was anonymized to go to the group. And so as I was presenting all of the main data points, all of the answers to them in aggregate, they said, it'd be really interesting to see what happens over time to a program. So can we mesh these together? This number of publishers, percentage of active, percentage of click active and sale active. Can we somehow cross-reference that with the age of the program? So that's when we built this chart that shows, as you said, you obviously would expect there to be more, just by number, more publishers in an older program. But what you don't expect is the percentage of clicked active and sale active are going to be higher. You would expect that, you might have 500 in the program, but you're still only going to have 30 of them or 50 of them that are doing the majority of your sales. But that's not the case. What it did show was that over time, that percentage of those was getting higher and higher. So it seems that maybe affiliate managers in particular who are taking the time to build these relationships, they might be starting with the low hanging fruit. They're starting with the cashback and the coupon sites and getting the placements on those, getting those up and running. And then they're building those other relationships with the comparison websites and the content sites and the influencers, so that not only do you have more in your program, but you have more being successful. And we saw a stair step in there where you have the number of publishers, the higher percentage of clicks active that you get, than the higher percentage of sale active. So it really is a matter of to nurture them, because once you get them sending clicks, you get them sending sales.
Well, the other thing that also proves is, thank goodness, but that 80-20 rule that's been dogging us for years in the affiliate marketing industry is now finally dead. It does not exist. Like, it's something that I talk about quite a lot, but the numbers actually prove that, because I guess in the early life cycle stages, like you said, you chase after the affiliates that are going to be able to get you the high volumes to get your program kick-started. But over time, that 80-20 rule needs to dissipate, because if you want to build a long-term sustainable program for 14 years, you need to be leveraging out and building those segments and doing all the things that the numbers are showing you with the more mature market that you're in. Depending on where you are in your life cycle, guys, you might want to go download this brand survey, go and have a look at some of those numbers, have a look at the segmentation, and really dig deep into your program right now in terms of who's active, and start putting a plan together for next quarter to chase after the affiliates that you've probably discounted, thinking that you don't need them. You do. You need every affiliate that's willing to promote you right now, because the market is getting more competitive. Looking ahead, like the brand survey findings, what are some of the key predictions for performance marketing 2025 that came out of seeing all of these numbers? Where do you see affiliate programs evolving and shifting their focus next year?
So I think what we saw is that you can definitely be successful with different types of publishers leading the way in your spend and your revenue. We know that we're seeing a lot of changes for the content publishers. We know that a lot of sites are getting hit by Google, whether it's the AI results that are pushing them down or the sites themselves that are getting hit. We know that there's going to continue to be a struggle on the content side, but that doesn't mean the end of affiliate marketing. That means the retailers are then going out and saying, okay, how do we adjust our mix? We're going to help you content publishers all that we can and help you nurture your sites and get your traffic back in other ways. But at the same time, we're going to make sure we're diversifying our portfolio. So when you're looking at some of these other things, one thing that I would like to see us do in this survey and our bigger survey in the future is to break down the technology publishers a little bit more so that we can say, what are these different types of technologies that we're talking about? We also saw subnetworks played a huge part in the data. We specifically asked you, are you working with subnetworks? And we saw a huge percentage that are over 9%. But then we also were looking at what is that subnetwork interplay? And we saw that some of the programs that are the smallest are working the most with subnetworks. If you do have a really small program, what type of subnetworks are you working with? And what are those relationships? Are you using them to basically be your recruiter and it can recruit a lot for you? Or are you working with them because you're working a lot in socials? And so you're using some kind of influencer networks to do that part of your recruiting for you. So I think we saw a large number working with subnetworks and a pretty large percentage of spend on the subnetworks as well. So that's something that I think we're seeing those evolve a lot in affiliate marketing, and they're where maybe once they were looked down on, now we're seeing so many really great subnetworks coming on that are offering a lot of different opportunities to these retailers that it's worth looking at the mix. And that's something that we're trying to put together best practices as the PMA to say, if you want to work with subnetworks, there are ways to do it. Here are some of the things here, not to cannibalize the rest of your program, but to augment the rest of your program.
And I think that's a very important piece of advice, because I talk to a lot of clients and they always say, I don't want to work with subnetworks because I can't see who's in it. Now, if the subnetwork is trustworthy, they are doing their own level of publisher vetting, and the traffic that you're coming through, you can see is converting. Why not work with the subnetwork? Like, for my mind, I think there's strategic reasons when you should be working with subnetworks, either early on in your program when you're trying to scale and test lots of different traffic sources. Maybe if you don't have a lot of resources internally in your own team and it's just like you're a one-man band, you can leverage subnetworks to help you. You can also use subnetworks to get into specialist markets. So there's networks that specialize in certain industries. If you want to jump over the pond and try a new continent or a new country and you don't have experience in it, a subnetwork can help you pave the way. Again, everything that you do in affiliate marketing has to be strategic, and it needs to be based on data. Like, you don't open the floodgates and let any old subnetwork in. You have a risk profile and you try and test a certain region, a certain market, a certain publisher type until you find the right mechanics. I think that sometimes that's what we forget about affiliate marketing is everybody wants instant results, instant rewards, and it doesn't work that way in this channel.
As a publisher, I have to have a long-term strategy of how I'm getting traffic to my site and how I'm sending traffic to the retailers. But the retailers have to have these strategies of the long term as well. And looking at these numbers, looking at the maturation of these programs becomes even more evident in terms of if you're an agency that you're working with these brands, the brands need to understand that this is going to take time. This is not the kind of thing, a 3-month contract of hire us for 3 months, we'll kickstart your program. Yeah, we can get you on some coupon sites, we can get you some quick traffic. But if you really want more than that, if you want to be around 14 years from now, you need to be building the relationships and letting your affiliate manager do what they do best. And that's look at all these different types of publishers and figure out what the mix is for you, because the mix is going to be different for every single brand. The mix of sub-networks that you're working overseas, do you ship overseas? If you do, then you should probably be working with some publishers overseas. Is that through a sub-network or an agency that you're using overseas as well? Who knows? So it depends. Where are you shipping? What are your priorities? What other kind of marketing you're doing? Are you already doing your own email retargeting? Are you already running a social media campaign? Are you already running your own search engine marketing? Like, every retailer is going to have this completely different combination of exactly what works for them.
Yeah, 100% agree. All right. So what would you advise brands considering working with an agency to drive their affiliate strategies, given the strategic role that agencies currently play in the US, according to the survey? What can agencies uniquely bring to the table for these brands? And how would you suggest that they go about contacting an agency if they think that they're ready to scale? What were some of the top things that brands were saying about working with agencies in the US, just in case anybody listening to this is looking for some help and support?
I think you want an agency that is active in things like this. You want an agency that's participating in reports like this, participating in organizations where they're getting this kind of data. So you want to know that they are actively involved in these things, because this is where the information is coming from. Affiliate marketing doesn't operate in a vacuum. So you want to know that the agency that you're working with, that they've got their finger on the pulse of what's new. They understand that there's not just coupon and deal sites. They have good relationships with coupon, deal, and cashback sites, but also that they understand you want to be working with buy now, pay later. Are you going to be working with CTV? Are you going to be working with retail media networks? Like all of these different up and coming things. You want to make sure that the agency that you're working with knows all of these different publisher types and has relationships with these different publisher types, so that when you sit together and you explain what your expectations are, understand what market you're going for, that agency can say, okay, let's try a little of this column, a little of this column, a little of that column, pull it all together into a cohesive strategy for you.
Totally agree. Last tips and conversations that we can leave people listening to us today. What were some of the big things that surprised you from the brand survey when you read it? Obviously, being heavily entrenched in the US market, what was like the big takeaway that made you stop and think, wow, I didn't know that?
I, as a publisher, was so surprised at how many programs had so few active publishers. When I show up at Affiliate Summit or some of these big conferences, PI Live, I show up at these things and there are all these big publishers and I'm such a tiny little fish in this great big pond. And I think, what do I have to offer? What can I offer when there's all of these hundreds of huge publishers out there? But then you look at this data and see that most of these programs that are getting their sales over the course of a year from 50 publishers, maybe 100 publishers. I can take a look at that on the publisher side and say, okay, I'm a part of that. I did generate some sales for them. Maybe I could generate just a few more for them and work my way up through that. So I think it takes this huge world of affiliate marketing, and then you bring in these numbers and it starts to narrow things down. And that even though it is huge, you really can, your company can be making a big impact overall.
And I think that's a really good point. It's forget about trying to chase everybody that everybody else is trying to chase, because the market's going to get competitive and all that's going to do is drive up your price. And if you start thinking with a profit margin mindset instead of an acquisition mindset, you will start to find pockets of value where you never previously looked. To me, that's the success of a really long-standing and strong affiliate program, is when you look back and you go, okay, year on year, we've actually increased the active number of affiliates by a third or more, even half, like 50% extra. The program that stagnates is a program that hangs around and continues to pay the prices of the 50 big publishers and never looks anywhere else. I'm telling you, you are missing out on a trick if you are, because you are not reaching your customer audience and you are not building your business's brand awareness. So take that and put it in your pipe and smoke it. And if you haven't joined the PMA, please consider going and visiting their website and looking at what the membership offers. Whether you're an agency, a network, a brand advertiser, a practitioner, somebody working in the trenches, There is something for everybody at the PMA, and you really need to be involved in this industry to hear and see these insights and leverage them for your business. Tricia, thank you so much for being on the podcast with me today and for sharing just a top-level view of some of the highlights that you and I wanted to pull out from the survey. Go and download it. Where can the guys download it? Is it on the website?
So it's on the PMA.org, and I actually, right before this call, I went in and I added up into our menu system. So that when you go up, take a look at our menu, there's just a drop down up there that has the link directly to it.
Okay. Download it, read it, think about it, put it into your strategies for next year. Join the PMA, go and visit them. They're heading out to Affiliate Summit West in February next year. I'm not going to be there this year, but they will be. So definitely go and say hello to some of the board directors that will be on their stand and try and see if you can buy a ticket to the networking event, because I've been to that and I love it. And you get it first if you're a member. So it's a no-brainer for me. So thank you so much for being on this podcast with me, Tricia. It has been a pleasure to talk to you again. And I really appreciate everything that the Insights Council has delivered in this brand survey. It has been very insightful.
Thank you.
Do you hear that? That's the sound of your affiliate program skyrocketing. Intrigued? Then you need to know about Advertise magazine. This isn't just another industry publication. It's your personal affiliate marketing powerhouse. Imagine having a mentor, a strategist, a productivity coach, all rolled into one sleek square package that sits right on your desk, helping you to grow your affiliate program every single quarter. Advertise magazine is the quarterly toolkit you've been dreaming of. It's packed with cutting-edge insights, expert interviews, and a full promotional calendar brimming with ideas to keep you ahead of the curve. But here's where it gets really exciting. We've included guided planning sheets and goal-setting tools that turn your big ideas into actionable steps. It's like having an accountability partner that never sleeps. Whether you're mapping out your next big campaign or planning your affiliate conference schedule, the Advertise magazine keeps you on track and fired up. And the best part? This game-changing resource is available to you to download digitally or order in print. But wait, there's more. Join our exclusive club and you'll get the premium print edition delivered to your door every single quarter. Plus, you'll unlock a treasure trove of perks, including live strategy sessions with industry titans and VIP access to our in-person events. Don't let another quarter slip by without this secret weapon in your arsenal. Head to AfriverseMedia.com, click on the magazine button at the top of the homepage, and order your print copy of the Advertise magazine today. Your desk, your affiliates, and your business will thank you.